Well, hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this weekly Hebrew word study. And we're continuing in 1 Samuel chapter 25, and we're going to finish up chapter 25 this week. And so we're going from verse 41 through 44. So, again, I wish you all a very Merry Christmas. Next week, we will not be having our class, but hope that you enjoy this time with your family and remembering the reason for the season and do your own word studies as to things that pertain to this Christmas season. I think you'll be blessed by it. And so, as we continue today, we're looking at verse 41. You can see it on your screen. And this is kind of the culmination of this episode of Abigail. And she's a very interesting woman, um, but this kind of comes to the end of her involvement. But there are things that you can research later on your own, looking at the sons that were born to her and how they fit in with some of the military campaigns that David and maybe even Solomon had later on. And so, as we pick up on verse 41, remember that David had come to Abigail previously. They formed a relationship. Nabal died, and now David is coming to take Abigail to be his wife. And so this is the second, what we feel is the second interaction that he sent servants to come and get her. And so that's where the scene is right now as we pick up in verse 41. So, Vaitakam, she arose, Vitishtahu, and bowed. Very interesting, this uh, Vetish tehu is to bow, is to show subservience. And what's interesting here is this doesn't look like what you would think of a proposal and of a betrothal and even a wedding um, coming up here. Just look at her actions as to how she interacts with the servants and then later on with David. She rose, she bowed down before him, and apayim, her face to the earth. So, again, would this be typical of a young lady coming to meet her bridegroom, that she would humble herself, bow down, her face to the earth? And then she uses what I think is one of the most beautiful words in the Hebrew scriptures, and that is hine, which means here I am. And it's used when Samuel hears the Lord's voice calling, it is used as a term of just subjection, of submission, of giving your everything and being ready to do whatever is set before you. So hine is a beautiful word to me. And then she calls herself Amtecha, Amataka, a maidservant, and again, not a bride, not a betrothed, not an engaged, but she calls herself a servant, a maidservant, and then repeats it again, Lashivha, to a servant to be a servant and to wash the feet of the other servants. Um, Not what you would think someone who's going to be a future queen, as she believes David is going to rule the kingdom. So, what's her angle here? What is she trying to portray? She's obviously taking a very humble and low road. She knows that David has spared her life. Um, and yet here she is going to be his wife, but not taking a queenly position in any way. So is she to be admired because of this? We don't know what's going on. We know later on, of course, that she is not the favorite wife. We know that Bathsheba, becomes somewhat the favored wife, bears Solomon, who becomes the next king, and so what happens to Abigail? Does she just kind of get absorbed into his harem? Um, we really struggle with trying to see what's the purpose of her becoming his wife. She does bear children. Well, you can look through the scriptures and see what part they play, but it's not a big role, but there are some instances where we see them there. So what's Abigail's purpose? Is it self-preservation? Is it just to be in the kingdom and be protected? Um, we know that she's not poor. We're going to see this really soon here. Watch how the narrative goes. So she takes this low road, low position. She would wash the feet of the servants of the king. And so we get to verse 44. Vatemacher, she arose, Vatakam, Abigail, Vatirkatav, and she rode on a donkey. And look what she takes with her, 5 maidens that attended after her. I really was mystified by this. Why did she have 5 maidens? Um, I know that it's very common in very wealthy circles to have attendants. We've seen, history, that the queen will have an attendant or one or two, but here, this lady's got 5. Okay, is it one to do her hair, one to do her nails, one to pick out her clothes, one to cook the food, one to clean the house? I don't know. What does you do with 5 maidens? And then, okay, is this something where she has these young women, she knows that her husband is dead, and she just needs someone to take care of her and keep her in the same type of lifestyle that she had before, which was obviously quite well to do. And her maidens are coming in on this and going to go with her so that they are also taken care of. Maybe that's what her purpose was, is subsistence, of survival, of knowing that this would be a better life than she would have, because she couldn't take care of herself anymore out in as a shepherd's wife, with Nabal's flocks. Who knows what happened to them, if the king assimilated them after Nabal died, or if creditors came and took them all away, and maybe she was faced with, poverty, and so, in order to save herself and her maidens, she submitted herself to this type of lifestyle just so that she would be taken care of. So she takes her 5 maidens, whatever they were going to do for her later on. She follows the messengers of David, and it said she became his wife. Obviously, there was a relationship that took place here, and then the narrative changes. We go to verse 43, and the rest of this chapter just talks about David's wives. Now, again, this is obviously not God's original plan. It's listed here who these wives were. He took Ahinoam and of Jezreel, and then those were 2 of his wives. And remember, he still had one before. He had Michal, who was given to him by Saul. But look at what happened here in verse 44. After David kind of took off, Michal obviously loved him because the Bible says that she loved him. And but yet Saul took her and gave her to a guy named Palti, the son of Laish, and he was from Galim. So how did this all happen? Did she get a divorce? Is she living obviously in adultery? Why would Saul do this to his daughter? We don't know the answer to all these things, but it's very, very interesting. And maybe David suffered heartbreak over this, knowing that this had happened. You would think that David had a relationship with her, even though she was kind of outspoken and resentful of what David's relationship with God was. So there was an estrangement there. But we see that however it happened, Saul took his daughter and gave it to Palti, and put her in this situation that we don't know if she was in favor of or if she wasn't. But again, lot more questions than we have answers for. But a very interesting situation, shows David's relationships as being a lot of heartbreak, a lot of struggle, a lot of strife. And this is only just the beginning. He's not even king yet, and we know he has a lot more relationship issues. And we know that David had a a problem with relationships, of wanting more than one wife, which led to many problems in his life coming up. And maybe this is all just to teach us of the kind of messed up family dynamics that David had and was creating, and how it sets the stage for more trouble in the future. So, hope you enjoyed that little tidbit. We'll finish off with this chapter 25. We will not have class next week. You enjoy your Christmas day next Sunday, next Sunday, and we'll pick up again in the new year with chapter 26. All right, thanks again for listening. God bless you all. I appreciate your involvement and your willingness to listen to these and be blessed by these studies very, very much. And I just pray that God's blessings will be upon you in this rest of this year and in the beginning of next. All right, see you then. Bye-bye.